Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us here today. Very excited to be kicking off another webinar series here focused around machine vision, specifically focused on the logistics market and taking a deep dive into some of the challenges that our clients are facing today, how they're leaning into some of the emerging technology around machine vision and fixed industrial scanning to overcome those challenges, and ultimately where they're seeing a benefit and realizing a return on that investment within the marketplace here. So uh, thank you for Peter and Jeremy. We got two industry leaders here joining us for the conversation today. Jeremy Logterman from the AbeTech side and Peter Tosh from Cognex. I want to take a quick second. Let's do a little round of introductions, a little bit of background on both companies, and then we'll kind of dive right in. So, Jeremy, if you wouldn't mind, take us through your role there at AbeTech and maybe a little history on who AbeTech is and where they're focused.
Yeah. Hi, Jeremy Logterman with AbeTech. So I'm a solutions architect. I've been in machine vision for 15 years, and my role at AbeTech is to help facilitate these solutions to our clients, help brainstorm them on the front end, and help our engineers on the back end develop products and solutions around the technologies that are available from our partners like Cognex. So AbeTech has been in business for 33 years. We provide tailored data capture solutions for manufacturing, warehouse, and distribution. So we work on technologies such as barcoding, mobile computing, label printing, RFID, and of course, machine vision. So we take both off-the-shelf components and develop our own tailored solutions to help our clients solve their data collection needs.
Outstanding. Appreciate it, Jeremy. And Peter, same for you. Mind a quick introduction, your role over there at Cognex. And for those who aren't aware, a little background on Cognex as well.
Sure, happy to, and happy to be here. I work with Cognex, which has been in business a little over 40 years and is the global leader in machine vision technology in factories and warehouses. So we service really three main business units within Cognex. First is our factory automation group with industries such as automotive and aerospace, consumer packages. We have our logistics group, which I'm personally a member of, which serves as more of the warehousing and supply chain aspect. And then it's consumer electronics, which is more of the high-end, phone manufacturers and those types of companies that we work with. So I personally work with the logistics organization in product marketing, where our team is really twofold. On one end, we are trying to understand what the market's asking for, what are industries and applications not currently served by Cognex products, and help guide our engineering efforts towards that. So making sure we get the most out of every investment we put into engineering and R&D. And on the other side, it's helping to launch those products out in the field and helping to make sure that our sales teams, our customers, and our partners such as AbeTech understand what they do, how to best get the value out of them, and make sure that they're getting the most out of every Cognex product that they purchase.
Appreciate that, Peter. Yeah, I know both AbeTech and Cognex serve a lot of different markets here, and I want to focus specifically on that logistics market here and really the challenges that those clients are seeing. So diving right in, first question, I'm going to pose this over to you, Peter, from your seat and from a Cognex standpoint. Could you walk us through what are some of the major challenges that the clients are facing within that logistics market today?
Sure. I think we have two main customer profiles that we see within logistics. And I think to explain that, it helps a little bit of context on automation within logistics as a whole, where factories tend to be very automated because the kinds of applications they see are extremely repeatable. If you're building engine blocks for Honda, Toyota, or Ford, you're having the same engine block come across for an entire shift, an entire day, an entire week, months. It depends on exactly how you set it up, but it's generally a very consistent application. And what machine vision is stellar at is checking between a known good and a known bad and differentiating between those. And when you have very consistent presentation, you're able to look for very small details that differentiate because you know the image is going to be almost exactly the same. And you can play a little bit of that Where's Waldo, which vision is spectacular at, very effectively. Now, logistics, the applications themselves are generally slightly narrower. There aren't as wide of an application swath as you see in factories, but the individual application is much more complicated. You might be looking on a line for envelopes. You might be looking for bed frames. You might be looking at, refrigerators. Almost anything could appear on that line. So the variation is much higher and it's much harder to adapt to that. It's why factories have tended to outpace warehouses in terms of their adoption of automation. But we're beginning to see new technologies such as AI enable us to handle more of that variation. So when we think about that, it's all about consistency. Like, how consistent is what we're looking at? How can we do the most in terms of our products and in terms of what Cognex or its partners such as AbeTech would help to develop to make those presentations more consistent? And then how can we begin to apply those towards more and more applications? So I think that's probably the biggest thing I could think of, is creating consistency. The people who've been able to do that have been able to adopt automation very well. The people who've struggled with that, I think there's still kind of a ramp up period that new technologies are making easier.
That's it. And follow-up question, same to you, Jeremy, from your seat, from an AbeTech perspective, being that solution integrator, kind of tying the technology and the processes together. Any other major challenges that your clients are facing and seeing them lean into the technology to solve those?
I think as we see our clients get larger and larger, distribution centers are popping up everywhere, and they're starting to consolidate those. A few percentages of read rate can make a huge difference. So if you're missing 1% of your scans in a factory and you're doing 1,000 packages a day, that's drastically different than these large scale warehouses that are doing millions and millions of packages a day, and 1% would just create a nightmare of a solution. So as technology from our partners like Cognex continue to improve, we're getting higher resolutions, higher speeds, bigger field of views, deep learning technologies that are making these products better and better. We're really seeing those be adopted in the marketplace by our clients to take advantage of that and squeeze out every ounce of performance that they can get.
And I'd like to pivot, right? You started to outline some of the technology there, and I want to take a turn, kind of dive a little bit deeper from a technology standpoint, right? We talk about machine vision and fixed industrial scanning. And Peter, if you wouldn't mind, could you walk us through a little history, right, from where the technologies come and what we're seeing emerge today to solve some of these complex challenges?
Sure. I think vision applications have, at least the way Cognex has approached them, traditionally fallen into really two main categories. You're either doing a visual inspection, where you're looking for a known good or bad part and differentiating between them, or there's typically barcode reading applications. And the vast majority of our business within logistics specifically has been focused on the barcode reading side for some of the reasons we talked about earlier. It's very hard to do vision within logistics. The variation is just so high. Like, being able to spot damages on a package, for instance, is something that's relatively obvious. If one shows up at your door, you can see it's broken. But when you're looking at tens of thousands of them every day, every week, it becomes very hard to draw an exact line on what do we call damage and what do we not. So that's one of the reasons we've split that with our two product lines at Cognex. We've had our Insight product line for vision, and we've had our DataMan product line for barcode reading. And if we talk maybe about the vision line specifically, that's what's known as a rules-based system, where you have to teach the camera what to expect. And you make basically a giant decision tree that says, if you see this, then you do this, and then you do this, which if you're just looking for a part that's white instead of black, can be very quick. If you're looking to understand where a scratch is on one part of an engine block, can be maybe a couple hundred lines. If you're looking to see where one scratch could be on all the types of logistics packages you might see over the course of a week, that might mean tens of thousands of lines of code. So it's a very efficient model for taking a single camera system and allowing you to do lots of different things with it. It's not so efficient when you need to do very complicated things. So this is why we started to invest more and more into some of the AI technologies, which kind of split into deep learning and edge learning. We can maybe geek out on that here in a minute. But that's something that we've tried to bring those two product lines together. But we've taken vision and barcode reading onto a single device, which is why we've launched our SLX product line to be able to do that here going forward and really bring vision into logistics, where we're handling a lot of that variation more with AI and those types of technologies, rather than asking you to go code tens of thousands of lines, which some of our partners here like AbeTech I know have done and have done very well. But it's maybe not the most scalable solution.
Yeah, I think to expand on that just a little bit, a few years ago, there were applications that were considered impossible in the machine vision world. And every day, we're checking more of those off the list that now we have opportunity to do because of edge learning technologies and deep learning technologies. They can handle, to Peter's point, all these extra variations and handle things that are more human-like in an inspection. And we can automate those processes with these advanced technologies. And it continues to develop. and the performance continues to grow and grow, and we're tackling these applications every day now.
And Jeremy, if you wouldn't mind, could you walk us through, you mentioned, right, we're seeing these new cases come up and where the technologies come today, we're finally able to go out and solve that problem, automate that solution. Could you take us through some examples, right, of this technology in action? How are they utilizing and what are they doing to solve that problem? And what's that specific problem that we're going out and tackling here?
So some of those problems are we've got a pile of packages coming down together on a conveyor. They might be touching, they might be separated, and Cognex's new pinpoint technology is able to not only find those barcodes but recognize some of these packages that are there and touching and where they are in space, and provide additional feedback to the operation, to the process upstream to help drive improvement, and purely because of AI technology. Another one we've seen is hazard labels, right? There's a number of DOT regulations that require certain hazard labels on packages, and certain packages that shouldn't have them on there and shouldn't be in certain areas. And putting these cameras in place to look for those red flags and either make sure they're applied properly or not being mixed up in a process where they shouldn't belong, I think is a really cool tool to have and be able to perform.
Yeah, the hazard zones are an interesting, use case, right? We see, now that anytime I get an Amazon package, right, and my kid always knows when it's a new toy because it's got the battery logo right on the outside of the box. She's like, Dad, I need to open that. So, great example. And from a platform perspective, right, being a solution integrator, right, all of this technology, being able to capture these data inputs. I know AbeTech has developed a Gatekeeper product line. Would you mind give us a little explanation or a little overview of how you architected that platform to absorb these different read points and technologies to make a cohesive solution for these end users?
Yeah, so we've built the Gatekeeper platform to be a data capture tool from the point your product goes into a box until it leaves your facility. So we say we want to make sure the right product's in the right box is in the right pallet, and the right pallet goes out the right dock door. So we use Cognex cameras. We analyze product as it's going in. If there's a barcode there, we're able to read those barcodes and ensure the correct product is being loaded. If there's not a barcode, we can use their smart cameras with deep learning and edge learning technologies and recognize product without a barcode, just based on the physical characteristics of it, and ensure those products are going in the correct box. Once it's in a box, most of our clients are putting a label on there to tell the next person what's in that box. We can take a scan, make sure the correct label was placed. Is it readable? Is it in the right location? All of these things are critical to this data capture piece, not only for our clients, but for their end clients, to make sure they're getting the right products and they know what's going where. From there, those products are typically placed on a pallet and palletized up. We have a scan tower, our Gatekeeper rotary, that'll work with a shrink wrap and scan all of those cases as they're being spun around. We can look for mixed pallets. We can look for specific case count quantities. And we can just simply associate all of those cases to a single license plate ID, so that instead of having to scan all of those cases again, either at your dock door or at the next location, you can apply a single license plate label that knows what the contents of that pallet are. It's also a great way to reduce labor and free up those people to do some other more critical tasks in the operation. From there, we've got a Gatekeeper dock door that is a tower that will look for that license plate label as those pallets go out to the truck. We want to make sure, is it going on the right truck? Is it in the right order? We have clients that are doing food products and need to know the frozen is in the front, refrigerated is in the middle, and ambient temperature foods are in the back. We have clients that have multiple stops getting loaded on a truck, and they want to make sure those are separated properly. So we can track all of these things in real time and provide that operator feedback right at the dock door as the pallet's getting loaded. So if there is a mistake, the operators can react to that quickly, get it corrected, and not have those missorts that can be very costly.
One of the interesting parts, as you outline, right, from kind of start to finish, that transition from the product life cycle journey, that pallet one's really interesting. Right? I don't know how many warehouses and facilities I've been in, and I've seen an operator stand there and just hand scan for hours and hours and hours. And I think AbeTech has had a recent use case in a nice win around that pallet scanning application. Would you mind give us a little bit more context, right, into to how did they uncover the need for that? How did we go and solve that solution? What was the ultimate benefit that end user saw?
Yeah, so we had a particular client that was putting between, I think it was 48 to 120 cases on a single pallet, and they had an operator that needed to hand scan every single one of those. And their time studies were showing they were averaging about 90 seconds per pallet to do that. So fork truck driver had to still stop, had to still stretch wrap it, somebody had to still hand scan it. And by going to the Gatekeeper Rotary, we were able to accomplish that entire scan process while it was stretch wrapping in under 10 seconds. So that first revolution, before all the plastic is even applied, we capture all of those codes, associate them while they're already doing other processes. So we eliminated a tremendous amount of time in their process and freed people up to, again, do other tasks that quite frankly, they're probably much better at than standing here and doing this all day. So in addition to that, there was also a safety factor. They were placing these pallets in an area where there's heavy fork truck traffic, and an operator had to stand there and perform this operation. And by eliminating people from that area, there's certainly a safety benefit to that and keeping that area clear for the fork truck traffic.
It's amazing. I never really thought of the human safety element, right? As we look at, the time savings alone, right, is enough justification as our clients, labor shortages is a reoccurring issue, especially as we enter peak season for a lot of the logistics market, right? Just having a body to be able to stand there and hand scan. But that safety component, I think really, pushes that ROI over the top, right? Your health and safety departments are going to love the fact that, we don't have operators now in forklift traffic, and standing by. So it's a really great win. From the use case perspective, I'd like to shift slightly and pose a question over to you, Peter, from a strategy perspective, as we're looking at successful vision rollouts, that pallet being a great example of end users and clients going out and trying to optimize their operations and workflows and processes. Could you walk us through into some of the best practices that you've seen when it comes to evaluating these solutions, and ultimately, how are clients being successful when they go to lean in to implement something like this?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because deploying the first camera might be complicated, but it's very doable. It's deploying the 10th, 100th, 1000th camera where you start having some complications come in, where your facility might be warmer or cooler, and that could cause maybe condensation on lenses. You might have changes in lighting overhead. You might be near a window or a dock door where light is changing, which obviously affects what the camera can see. So I think standardization is a big one. Whatever you can do to make the mechanical setup and what the camera is looking at as similar from installation to installation is extremely valuable. And Cognex spends lots of time and resources on how do we standardize our products and our solutions. We're bringing multiple devices together to offer a more complex solution to a customer. How do we make that as standard as possible? So when we deploy it at the first site, it performs exactly the same as it does there on the 100th site. So I think that's a great one. Anything you can do to find a way to bring standardization to what you bring to the deployment is extremely valuable. I think one thing that we've spent a lot of time doing is how do we use new technologies to help take down some of that variation so that way the same camera can handle levels of variation beyond what it would be able to do otherwise. So some of our deep learning and edge learning tools have been used for that. And I think we could probably deep dive a little bit on what those mean. But I think it's very valuable to the customers, where deep learning has an extreme amount of value in very complex applications where you can show lots of variety and complexity to an AI model. And it would be able to then determine, does this fall into category 1, 10, 100, 1,000? What am I looking at? If you need to identify individual SKUs, for instance, it can be great for that. Edge learning, on the other hand, has an extreme advantage in ease of deployment. You can set something up by showing it maybe just as little as one example of a good and a bad part, and it could run from there. So some of the downsides are deep learning tends to take quite a bit of time, and you have to show it a lot of different images because it has to be able to differentiate between almost any edge case. And it can become a bit of a black box where if you have a new SKU added at the end of the training process, that might screw up SKU 265 that you trained a couple hours ago, right? As opposed to edge learning, which is very quick to deploy and very simple, but doesn't always have the robustness to solve a lot of the more complex applications. So in a way to try to get the benefits of both, Cognex has gone and taken deep learning models and trained them to millions of images. Jeremy referenced our pinpoint model earlier, which is one of these models. We pre-trained over 6 million logistics packages and shown it this is what you can expect to see when you're on a logistics site. But then we've condensed that down and done all the basic pre-thinking where it now knows what to expect. And you can run that on an edge device on our SLX product line in under 50 milliseconds. So you can now run this 20, maybe 30 times a second and correctly identify packages in the high 99 percentile accuracy. So that's the type of thing that typically would have taken either tens of thousands of images being trained to be able to understand what we're looking at, which would vary based on site, would vary based on camera placement, vary based on lighting. Then now you can just take out of the box, set a sensitivity for what do you want to look for, and you're ready to go. So those are things that we're trying to do from a product and platform perspective to handle a lot of that variation and reduce a lot of the threat of something changing that you just didn't expect because maybe your building has a window you didn't expect. These are the types of things that have screwed up applications I've personally bet on. So we're trying to do that to help with these pre-trained AI models.
It's always surprises.
Always.
Right.
Always.
Right. Yeah, you can plan for the best case scenarios, but it's always those edge cases that end up poking their head up and always pose a problem. And I wanted to throw to you, Jeremy, from an AbeTech solution integrator perspective. Some of the tools that Peter just outlined, that deep learning, AI, how we solve for those edge cases. Can you walk us through what are the best practices from an AbeTech standpoint when we're working with an industry leader like a Cognex, right? The bag of tools is endless. What are some of the things that you're seeing, be successful when working, to implement the technology out in the marketplace?
I think it's important to take a look at, or at least talk about the process that we use when we approach a new application. So there's really 4 main steps for us. And the first one is we have a conversation with our client and we need to truly understand what their needs are and what the problems are. So that might be, we've had measurement applications. All right, what are we going to call a defect? How big is too big or how small is too small? If it's a barcode application, what type of barcode are we reading? How big is it? Where is it going to be placed? Is it repeatable? How are we going to present that to a camera? So there's a number of these just parameters that we need to understand about this application. And we really help coach our clients on what's important for machine vision. We use our experience to do that and then ask a million questions to make sure we understand their pain points. The second step is, using a camera-based solution, they rely on contrast. We need to know, can we see what we need to inspect? And so there's optics, there's lighting, there's angles, there's mounting, there's repeatability, there's, again, product presentation. How do all things come into play, and how can we know that we're going to set a camera up to take a good picture every single time? Because without that, there's really no point in moving on if you can't get a picture of it. We can't see it, we can't inspect it. So the next step is, Cognex has a huge library of tools. Again, they've been doing this for, Peter, I think you said 40 years. Giant library of tools. What are the tools that we need to solve this problem? So we've got a team of experienced vision engineers that are working with these tools every day. So we take those images and we use these tools to automate that inspection, whether that's reading the right barcodes again or looking for defects. Our team knows how to implement those tools. And then the last step is, how can we make this whole solution easy for our clients? That could be something we need to send data to their database. That might be we need to take a trigger from their machine. That might be we need to present this information in a meaningful way for an operator to take action. So for our gatekeeper examples, if there is something that doesn't belong, we might need to send a reject signal to a case and kick it off the line. For our rotary solution, we might need to capture an image and say, here's what the a missort looks like. We had a mixed product that shouldn't belong. Here's what it looks like. Here's the one that was mixed. Here's what the rest of the pallet was. On the dock door, we might have to shine a bright red light up in the trailer so that a driver, as he's pulling through, can see that there is something wrong and can immediately take it out and take action. So we really put a lot of effort into making these solutions very user-friendly for our clients.
If I could jump in there, I think it's fascinating to hear you talk about it that way, because it's very similar terms that Cognex use internally when we think about how to build products and build solutions, where historically our mode of operation has been to take an image and figure out how we can manipulate that to better solve applications. Like, can we provide you tools to understand where different defects are and different things are within the scene, and allow you to build that kind of from the ground up from the image? And I think we're taking a bit of a new view now, where we're going more at an application level and saying, if a customer comes and asks for instance, a side-by-side, which can cost quite a bit of money because you have two packages traveling through a barcode reading tunnel, and you're expecting a barcode and you read it, but you don't see the second package that's face down next to it that doesn't have a barcode on it. So that just disappears. It can cost you $10. It might cost you thousands if that's a package of iPads, for instance. So we're trying to figure out now at an application level, how do we bring those down? We have internally a 4-tier approach, where there's, at the entry level, an untrained customer who's never seen our products before could solve this. There's on the next level, which is with standard Cognex support, you could solve this. You need specialized Cognex support, and then we need external vendors, real industry expertise, where we lean on our partner network like AbeTech. And I think trying to bring things down that ladder has been a real focus here. And I think you guys have done an excellent job handling this with your expertise out in the field. We're trying to find ways to make that easier for you and open up more applications on that ladder.
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit, right? As far as an application and a use case perspective, right? Of being able to lean into the technology, the expertise, right? The unknowns, the gotchas, right? Being able to solve for all of those, I think is really tremendous, and we're seeing real success in the market, right? As clients lean into that relationship between the solution integrator, the manufacturer partner, to come out, bring together these cohesive solutions and really solve some complex use cases. So we've explored the technology. We've kind of talked about some of the challenges that the industry is facing from a logistics market. I'd like to shift a little bit to a Q&A standpoint. We've received some questions from some clients that I'd like to pose over to two of the industry leaders here and get your thoughts, opinions. And one I'd like to build off of, as we're talking about peak seasons, logistics market, right? We're entering the Thanksgiving, Black Friday holidays, packages, shipments, throughput's going to skyrocket for a lot of these clients. So one of the questions, and I'll pose this over to you, Peter, as clients are struggling to find efficiency gains during these peak seasons, what are some of the things that they should be on the lookout for from either an operational perspective, a process perspective, that would indicate that, hey, there could be a better way to do this to achieve some ultimate end goals?
Absolutely. I think maybe just to start on a little bit of problem definition here, the peak season, it might be the number one challenge for automation within logistics as a whole, where not only is there massive variation within packages as you just figure out how to handle those with technologies like robotics and vision, but also when you get to Thanksgiving and Christmas, all of a sudden you're shipping between 2, and the highest peak ratio I've ever seen is 23 times what you're shipping on a standard day. So it's a massive challenge. What do? Do you build more conveyance? Do you add in more robots that just sit fallow for most of the year? Or do you try and rush in people at the end of the year and increase your cost per package shipped? It's a very difficult challenge. And it's one of the major reasons that flexible automation, such as AMRs, mobile robots, and goods-to-person systems that are more scalable, where you can add in and take out different pieces of that throughout the year, have really taken off within logistics. Some of the fastest growing companies within logistics automation have been those and software, both of which are very scalable over the course of a year. So vision, unfortunately, is one of those technologies that traditionally has had a hard challenge with that. So I think, again, some of the AI components help us with that, the ability to increase throughput, the ability to increase read rates, where we're able to allow the same device to run at much higher throughputs. has been extremely helpful for our industry. But getting the specific things that customers can look for, I think the number one thing you want to be thinking about is operational expenditure. When you are shipping, again, between 5, 10, 15, 20 times more packages a day than you were last week, you have to think about, how do I decrease the amount of cost per package? Because you're not paying any more for AC or heating or whatnot, maybe a little bit because it's cold outside. But for the most part, it's all in the incremental cost per package shipped. So a lot of that comes down to physical touch points. Am I handling this package more times than I need to? Trying to find those types of places where you see some of the physically hands-on products. That might mean you need 5 people there next week when it comes to Thanksgiving time. Is there a way that we can reduce the amount of packages that individual needs to touch? Is there a way we can help automate that or increase their throughput with barcode scanners, either with hand scanning, maybe a hand presentation scanner? Those are the types of places I'd be thinking to look. And then last but not least, one thing I think people don't always take into account that we hear quite a bit is the potential damage to brands, where if you have even a 0.1% of a failure rate with your shipment, which is exceptional. If you can get 99.99% of your packages entering and leaving your facility on time and going where they're expected to, that's pretty great. Most stats types would be pretty happy with that. But it also means if you're shipping 10 times as many packages, suddenly you have 10 times the number of customer claims. And in an age of social media where one video, one bad tweet can really do damage to your brand, it's something that I don't think people consider as much, but it's really caused brands to spike and decline through the holiday season.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? That brand protection, with the increased throughput, right? Being able to minimize, the impact that could have is definitely something to be aware of. And I'd like to throw it to you, Jeremy, same question. Entering peak season, from an OpEx reduction, chargebacks, etc., anything from being boots on the ground, at AbeTech that you're seeing that these end users should be on the lookout for that would indicate, hey, I need to give Jeremy a call over there at AbeTech.
Yeah, one of the ones I'll expand on for Peter was touch points. Anytime a package needs to be rejected, it's almost certainly going to be a touch point. Somebody has to look at this now and decide, why is it here? Where does it belong? How do I fix this problem? And what we see is if you have a barcode reader that's failing, you're going to get false rejects, and you're going to increase the number of packages that are coming to that touch point. And that can be a real bottleneck for a lot of our clients, particularly in a peak season where you just don't magically have more space or more people to come and look at these packages. So I think optimizing those scenarios, making sure the right barcode readers are there, and the right lighting solution is put in place is really important. And then with our Gatekeeper platform, really just eliminating errors, reducing those errors, reducing the missorts, reducing the mixed shipments that don't belong. If we have a client with if it's groceries, right, and you missort an entire pallet, they now have to make a decision. Do I leave it there? Does it go to my store and I just sell extra milk at this store? Or do I need to take that back and lose a day or two of shelf life to get it to the correct store that needed it? And those can be really costly decisions, right? So by preventing that at the warehouse level and preventing those missorts from being an escape, I think is really powerful. And it just is amplified during the peak season when you have temp labor, you have people working longer hours, you have more mistakes, more opportunity for mistakes. So all of those things can compound in the peak season, and having some automation to back up your operation, I think is really important.
Yeah, as I'm thinking through that, I hear this is a big part of our product strategy going forward as well, is how do we add things incremental to barcode reading on our logistics systems, to how do we look for checking number of packages as we maybe count on an inbound to make sure you got everything that you expected to. How do we look to classify for potential types of damage, or making sure you've received the right types of products. Being able to add those onto a device that's already doing barcode reading allows us to reduce the number of those decisions you have to make of like, oh crap, I just shipped this and I shouldn't have. Like if we can stop something like that before it leaves a facility, or maybe even better, before it enters a facility, before you even have to enter it into your network. These are the types of things that we're trying to add onto our vision systems by adding them onto barcode readers through our SLX product line. We're giving you guys more options out in the field on what do you want to be able to check for, and just, again, opening up that toolbox to be able to help you guys reduce some of those challenges for customers over peak.
Yeah. I also, though, I wouldn't mind if we don't solve exactly all the problems. I did get an instance where I got a package shipped to me and it had two of the items that I ordered in it. And lo and behold, I reached out to them and said, "Hey, you guys overshipped me. Do you want this back?" And it actually was going to cost the company more money for the reverse logistics to bring that back into inventory than it is just to write it off. So, maybe we don't solve all the problems in the world. I could take, some extra products here and there, but I think those are great use cases, right? To optimize, reduce overall costs, right? As these seasons hit, and even outside of, right, peak seasons, just the normal day-to-day operations, right? These are things that as end users, as you focus in on, right? These are all kind of bottom line, cost savings initiatives, whether that's operational, throughput, cost of goods, et cetera. So really interesting, really good conversation here. And want to kind of dive into, I'm an existing client, right? I have my line, it's working pretty well, but I found, right, I could use some automation here. One of the big questions we get is, can you integrate with what I already have? And it is always the caveats to that. But Jeremy, question for you: as AbeTech looks to go into an end user, there's an opportunity. How can we integrate with existing technology, whether that be conveyance lines, PLCs, WMS systems? And could you coach us through, kind of in working with, in conjunction with the Cognex, right? How do we implement this type of technology into these existing environments, and how fast can we do that? And how easy does AbeTech and Cognex make that for those end users?
Yeah, so Cognex's product, their DataMan product especially, is built around a number of standards in the industry that make our lives as the integrator and our clients' lives much easier. So whether that's an Allen Bradley Ethernet IP or a Siemens Profinet or a more generic Modbus TCP IP, they have these industrial communication protocols that allow us to connect to existing systems, communicate information back and forth, and integrate really seamlessly. On top of that, we've got our own customization team, our tailoring team, that will customize just about anything and talk to SAP, talk to Manhattan, talk to large WMS systems, and we can really customize that data flow and take data in to compare, and we can send data out for a closed loop solution for our clients.
So I'm going to ask the loaded question. How long does it take to stand up a machine vision project like that? It's typically one of the first things we get asked, like, we need this. How long is it going to take to get it in place?
Yeah, this is where I get to play politician and say it depends. I think it's our favorite thing in machine vision to say, but really, we've talked a little bit about the varying levels of complexity, and we really see the entire gamut of, hey, this box is coming along, the barcode's in the same spot every time. I really need a bracket and a photo eye to capture this and read this code and know that we've got the right product and what serial numbers we're sending and track that data. That might take a day of somebody on site to just get it all set up, mounted, test it, watch it run for a while, and then give them the thumbs up, make sure we're communicating. Everything to high-end scan tunnels, high-end deep learning applications, looking for other anomalies, other features in the operation that maybe aren't as traditional. And we're always willing to go look at those and tackle those and provide feedback on those. But some of those do take a long time. Depending on the complexity, it could take weeks to build a library of images and train deep learning and then test and reiterate and get to a solution at the level that we expect this to deploy to.
Yeah, hearing you talk about that makes me think of two separate things. The first one is on the "it depends," which is a staple of the machine vision industry. I've used it, you've used it, we've all used it before when talking to clients, and it truly does depend on what you're looking to solve for. And there are many factors that can make applications much more complex. And I think one thing that we're trying to do at Cognex is really reduce that amount of complexity. Like, how can we make one question get to one answer with our technology? Like, is the answer yes? Is the answer no? That's what we're trying to do, is reduce the amount of variation that we get. That it's signal versus noise. When we look at a picture, because we look at the picture of me right now, you're not looking necessarily at the background. It's how do we interpret where I am within the shot, right? So a lot of the AI technologies are helping us with that. A lot of that pre-trained AI technology, again, is helping us even more, which then brings you back to some of the question of how do we integrate with other technologies, where previously we've done that through some of our communication methods, being able to handle all types of Ethernet communications. But we're trying to take that a step further and create a standard piece of hardware that won't necessarily need to be updated, where a lot of the revolutions within machine vision over the last maybe 10 or 15 years have come in the hardware. It's a faster piece of compute technology, it's a new sensor, it's a new lens, which might mean you need to go rip out something in the field and replace it with a new piece of technology. Now, it'll be much better once you do, but it's still a net change. Questions we're trying to ask now is, can we create a single piece of hardware that'll be continually functional for the next 20 or 30 years? We can just update software to it. So that way it's not something you have to go back and retroactively update. You can just push a file over maybe a USB stick and you're good to go. So I think it's an exciting time to think about those types of questions on how do we continue to work with existing automation to where we can make that even simpler going forward.
Yeah, you hit it on the head there, Peter. Exciting times, right? You know, I think we could sit here for hours and hours and continue to discuss, right, what the industry is doing. And this will be the first of hopefully many, a series of sitting down as a team and being able to dive deeper into what the industry is doing, how the tech is emerging, right? AI and the iterations that are coming from that, right? The sky's the limit on technology and the problems that we're solving. So excited, gentlemen. I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today. This has been wonderful. If anyone does have any questions or wants to hear directly or have a conversation with Peter or Jeremy, please reach out. We'll make sure we get all the contact information out here. And then, like I said, in our next series, send us your questions. I'll have a chance that we can ask Peter and Jeremy, live and get some further feedback from them. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.